Welcome back to Oneself. My name is Stephen Maher. With me today, with me always, is Adam Bartleman. Adam, thank you so much for joining me today, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Steven.
So it's now my turn to be a little bit under the weather. I don't know if anyone can hear that in my voice. A little stuffy, a little sick, but we're gonna keep it rocking and rolling and keep it with what I think is one of the most fundamental aspects of the human experience, which is laughter. There's kind of this philosophy. Oh my God, you hear the sickness? Philosophy. There's a
Philosophy.
philosophy within my family, um, where it's just like if you don't laugh, you'll cry, right? And that's not to say don't cry, right? Not acknowledge your emotions, but just recognize the fact that laughter is sometimes the thing that carries us through the hard times, right? Laughter is the thing that makes life, worth living in a lot of ways. It's one of those crucial things. What is better than, laughing with friends or laughing with family or laughing when you're not supposed to, right? I got a little mischief in my soul. I love a little chaotic good. I don't want to hurt nobody, but if I can
Yeah.
cause a little mischief and stir the pot up, I usually feel inclined to do so, right? Especially if I'm a little bored. Um, Laughter's the best, y'all. It's the best, and I think it's just one of those things where it's medicine, right? They say laughter is medicine, and I truly, truly believe that. And we were talking, a couple episodes ago when I was laughing with friends at a dinner table, and it's like I haven't laughed that hard in days because we were just telling stupid jokes and stories, and I was, yeah, like belly laughing at these beautiful moments with these new friends of mine, and yeah, man, I just think it's a beautiful example of what it means to be human, and especially when it comes to trauma, y'all, too, as well. It's like, how do we handle the things that we've experienced? Adam and I were just talking about this before we hopped on when it comes to like alcoholism, and we both experienced that within our immediate families, and how do you laugh, how do you get through that sort of stuff? It's through laughter. And, Adam was saying how Trailer Park Boys was a pertinent example in his mind of, with Mr. Leahy and, as a drunk, and how just like that shouldn't be funny, right? Like, we both had these like traumatic experiences within our family, when it comes to alcohol. But then here we are, watching a show where, we're laughing at this example of this, one of this super intoxicated character, right? And,
Yes.
but like that's just, we laugh to get through it, and we laugh because we recognize truth, right? Sometimes, we laugh,
Yeah.
oh, it's funny because it's true, right? And
Yeah.
there's truth in pain, and there's truth in suffering. But when someone has the beautiful gift to recognize or to see an awful thing with a humorous perspective, not necessarily punching down on that person, or belittling or whatever, but it's just like recognizing that there's something funny about it, and
Hmm.
that's that's like such a gift to give someone. It's just like a little sense of relief. um yeah, I remember when like there was a really beautiful example of, I don't know, like when like Kobe Bryant died, and I remember I was watching the memorial for Kobe Bryant, and Michael Jordan was giving a speech, and Kobe Bryant's like memorial in Staples Stadium in Los Angeles. And there's this famous meme of Michael Jordan crying. And so like everyone, like posting comments of like it's like a face of Michael Jordan crying. And of course during the course of his speech, Michael Jordan starts crying talking about Kobe. And and so he was just like, of course they're gonna post another crying meme about me, and then like the entire stadium erupts, right? Like everyone's crying, everyone's in grief, but like he just nails people with this little moment of humor. And I just remember being like so struck by that, where it's just like here are these people, Kobe's wife, right? She just lost her husband, she just lost her child,
Yes.
and and like even she was laughing, right? So he just gave everyone a temporary moment, like a relief from their grief. And I was just, like, so struck by that when I was watching that because, again, like, laughter is just, like, a beautiful way to, like, get through the hard times, and to get through these the suffering that encompasses the human experience, right? It's like, it's to laugh through it is to make it bearable, like, a little bit easier. So, those are just my opening thoughts on this stuff, man, and Adam, I'd love to hear what you think, in terms of
Yeah, man.
laughter.
Yeah, yeah. That's, that's a great example. The funeral laughs, like, I've experienced that a few times, like,
Yeah, when you're
those are
remembering
powerful.
somebody. Yeah, and,
Yeah,
he's a
yeah,
fucking asshole when he was doing this, but, we love him or, whatever,
yeah,
it's just like, yeah, and everyone knows what you're talking about, and
yeah,
they laugh, and yeah, the funeral
yeah.
laughs hit the
That's
hardest, man.
yeah, man, I love those. It's, yeah, it's like those laughs in the midst of tears. It's like that's such a powerful, you know, sort of polarizing experience in that exact moment that brings you into like the totality of it's an expansive experience. It's like it brings you into the totality of like that present moment, which is a lot when you're getting like crying and laughing out of it, you know. There've been times in my processing trauma where I've been like crying and laughing at the same time. And it's like that's a cool experience. It's a cool feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, the humor is so important. I remember doing this sort of like alternative therapy thing years ago. It must have been like 8, 9 years ago. And this therapist was like making this it was like kind of like a group thing, and this therapist was making a like a family tree thing where it was kind of looking at the positive and the negative in your family and the trauma and any themes that were coming up. That was just a very basic explanation of what was going on. And when it came to me and this person was writing it all up, and I was like explaining my family history on either side, this this therapist had this moment where she was like kind of lost for words because there was usually kind of a balance of like positive and negative in most people's diagrams that were put up and I without intending to I explained mine and she put it up there and she was kind of at a loss for words, like it was just like all a big shitstorm up there. I was like she was like is there anything positive? And I had to sit there and think about it, and I kinda, like it kinda caught me off guard. I was like, "Oh, yeah," and I had to think about it for a second, and I was like, "You know what? Yeah, actually something I missed is humor." Like, my mom's side of the family specifically, like, really fucking funny people. Like,
Yeah.
really a lot of trauma and, like, a lot of sad stories and a lot of darkness and a lot of humor. Like, a lot of incredibly deep humor. And I was like, "Yeah, you know what? And that makes up for all the rest of it." I'm really grateful for that part of it. And, and that's been true, like, throughout my life, and in it from an early age, like, my mom is really funny. My dad's pretty funny too. My mom is really fucking funny, though. And like, my uncles, her brothers they've always been like that. And, and yeah, man, it's a really important part of the experience. Being able to, especially, as we quickly mentioned before we hopped on, the dark humor, it's important. And as you said, not ever trying to punch down on anyone, but sometimes we end up walking that line, and sometimes, especially in retrospect, we see maybe the humor was a little inappropriate. Maybe but it's that introspection and that reflection that allows us to grow, to see and maybe evolve our sense of humor. And doing so in the midst of cancel culture, kind if I mean, not that you have to pay attention to it and make it real, but if you pay attention to that expression of the current society is, that's a very toxic expression in my opinion. So trying to maintain a sense of humor in the midst of cancel culture, that's even more difficult because people shouting down comedians saying you can't talk about that, you can't talk about this, and then always finding the line of what we find acceptable and unacceptable because that's an ever evolving process. But so basically, yeah, what I'm saying is humor is important and it's an important part of our evolution and looking at like who we're choosing to be as individuals in a society through what we're finding funny and what we're accepting as funny. Um, because there are going to be certain things that most people are going to say like you can't joke about that and then other things you can joke about and in my personal experience as I was relating to Stephen before working in emergency services for 10 years as my prior career that was some of the funniest stuff I've ever experienced in my life. Some of the times I've laughed the absolute hardest in my life were at my old job, coming back from an incredibly dark call, like guys are sitting in the truck rolling away from a scene that we've just been involved in and everyone's quiet. Everyone's, the tone is it's morose. It's like the energy is heavy and then somebody says something funny and like 99% of me is like, this is not an okay time to be laughing, to be, when I was new. Like that's inappropriate. This is not okay. But then there's that 1% that's like, oh my God, that's fucking hilarious. Like and then and then that builds and then that sort of dark sense of humor as a coping mechanism builds. But that stuff is just so important. And I'll never let go of the humor. I'll never not think that it's important, like the example of Mr. Leahy and the raging alcoholism. It's like, yeah, everything about this is not funny, but it's also hilarious. And why is it funny? It's like because that pain is relatable and like it's so true in the experience that like this is a good outlet for it. Um so yeah, man, it's a it's a great topic of conversation in my opinion. I love talking about humor and hearing people's backgrounds of, the stories and it's now more than ever. And we could say that about any point in history. It's like now more than ever humor is important. It's like and that's going to be, true tomorrow and next year. Now more than ever humor is important.
Yeah, man.
Um you know,
My family too, brother, like, rampant with, addiction and stuff and trauma, but, like, yeah,
yeah.
man, everyone's funny. Like,
Yeah.
like, I laugh a lot with my family,
Mm,
and
yeah.
my grandfather too. My grandfather, this man has, he's 89 years old, he's losing his fucking mind, yeah, close to death door, God bless him, but he's still got his wit. Like, as he's losing
Mm,
his mind, like, guess what's not gone? Is the wit,
yeah.
And he's funnier than he's ever been because it's
Yeah.
almost like he's forgot a lot of his traumas, but, like, the wit that he's used to cope with all those years is, like, still there. And he's yeah, man, he's just like, like you'd think that he just, the lights would be on, but no one's home. But like when he's in the midst of a
Mm,
conversation with the family, he's slinging out like zingers, like left and right. I married her for the money, talking about my 89-year-old grandmother, right? You know what I mean? And like
yeah.
she's, knowing that that's all the money they got is between them, but he's, he's just still whipping out jokes, just, oh, I married her
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
money. And, but like also being affectionate at the same time, with her.
Yeah.
And it's really an amazing thing to watch while all the other, facilities of his brain, um, kind of, are fading. It's like the humor is still there.
Mm,
And I think that was a survival mechanism because, he had an insane life, like he had a hard life, right? And, one born out of trauma, right? The Irish Catholic guilt, trauma, alcoholism, all that, all that shit,
mm,
that was wrapped up in my family. And, but it's like the laughter is some sort of, just survival mechanism that just kind of makes it bearable, man. It really does. And
yeah.
like you said, and like, and in those, in those environments too, where, um, when I was working construction in high school and, like, I was working with grown ass men and I was like, 16, 17, but I was working with like grown men, like I was in it,
Yeah.
and, the humor on those, again, would very
Yeah.
cancelable, but, like, at the same time,
Yeah.
am I laughing? Like, absolutely, and it's
Yeah.
just like, because guess what, brother? Like, that job is hard, and it's like those men are waking up every fucking day and doing the same shit different day, and it's a hard
Yeah.
job, and it tears apart your body, and a lot of those men are, yeah, the cigarettes or the Zins or, the nicotine,
Uh,
and then going home and drinking, like, it's like all of them are on something, and,
yeah.
so it's like, how the fuck do they cope with the mind-numbing reality that, like, I gotta wake up and do this shit again the next day? It's humor, right? It's
Yeah.
humor. And so a lot of the stuff I can't repeat, but goddamn, it was funny at the time, especially as a fucking 16-year-old. And it's just like,
Oh,
but
yeah.
now I recognize it's just like it's a coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism for people to survive the reality that
Yeah.
life is hard, it's gonna continue to be hard. So it's like I might as well point out the funny shit, um, and laugh about it, and because
Yeah.
that makes it just a little bit more bearable. Like it allows you to get through the day a little bit more easier. And I've noticed that too,
Absolutely.
like with like traumatized populations, man, with traumatized populations in general, oppressed people, from what I've observed, they're often funny, you know, like they're
Yeah.
often really funny because
Yeah.
it's just this mechanism born out of the suffering, the additional suffering that already is on the human experience, and then other humans come on and put more suffering on them, and it's like, how do you get
Mhm.
through that? And it's humor, man. It's humor.
Yeah. I think it's a natural I think it's a natural response because it is unifying, and like trauma is creating splits, or it's like attempting to create splits in the psyche. And then I think that humor is like something that brings it back together, because you talk about, the construction site. And it was like same for me, like it was like there was the fire department and I worked in construction too, and also construction site. Oh my God, like the humor was top notch. Some of the stuff written in those porta potties was like, oh my God, beyond cancelable. Like it's just be like,
Yeah.
I can't, it's just funny that someone would even write that down. Like, not even just think about it, but like that someone would think to put that down for other people to see. It's like that in
Yeah.
itself is hilarious. Um, yeah, cancelable. And man, supremely. But
Yeah.
the cool thing is like, in my experience, like we're men here talking about a lot of men's issues. And so from my experience, like I'm sure it's for everyone, but like in my experience, like whenever men get together, that's just gonna be something that they connect on, like, immediately. Like, a bunch of strangers, you show up to a new job site, like, you're kinda working with, like, maybe a few guys but, like, there's some new guys here and, like, you don't know any of them. Like, how do you create that first bridge to, like, a relationship? It's usually gonna be humor. Like I think about when I went to fire school, like fire academy to do my training as a firefighter, like begin my training as a firefighter. And it's like it was 19 guys. I think maybe two guys knew each other before, but basically 19 strangers just put in a room like, okay, we're gonna go through a few months of 12-hour days of like classroom and like and physical, like practical training. It's gonna be like difficult, it's just like a bunch of strangers gonna be like just thrown into this mix, like just okay, get along, figure it out. And just like anything, it's like again, like thinking back to that, I was like, I just turned 20 years old. And I remember some of the stuff we were laughing about back then. Like it was so funny. Like immediately, some of the funniest shit you'll ever hear is just like put a bunch of guys together in a room and like see what happens. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's just absolutely gold, And
Yeah.
yeah, man, it creates that bridge. And I think, part of that cancel culture kind of energy is like is actually creating division. People think that like, again and again, it's always both. Everything is always both. We're
Yeah,
looking,
it's
both
multiple
sides of the
truths. Yeah.
coin. Both sides of the coin, multiple truths. So looking at, obviously there are toxic things, that elements of our society that need to be called out and stopped. But also recognizing that the perspective on that is something that changes throughout time. So even though we may be collectively judging something is not okay, we can still hold the awareness that, maybe 50 years ago, all of us would have thought about this very differently because we had a different context, and like right and wrong changes over time and space. So those being related, obviously. So recognizing that what we may collectively choose, we may collectively decide is not okay right now. Like, great, let's do that together and make that decision and express ourselves individually and collectively and see how that plays out. That's all good. But just recognize that, we can do that, and then we can still also allow some things to be funny and not try and cancel all of the humor, because we got to recognize that it's pulling us together. So recognize that, we can still agree that, some things are bad, some things are good, while holding the awareness that those things change, so we don't have to take ourselves so fucking seriously. Which again is just another humorous element of it. And yeah, just kind of look at remembering the fact that humor is so important and does bring us together. And maybe if it's a little off color, if it's a little of an off color joke, like maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not the biggest fucking deal in the world, or maybe it is. Again, multiple truths. Just recognizing that. Anyway, I'm choosing to see it that way, that like humor does bring us together. And, as I'm saying, it can be toxic. I have experienced that too. Again, the old jobs. Sometimes it's like that's going a little too far. It's punching down, that's a little bit of bullying. But then again, those are the parameters of the game that we're choosing in order to express ourselves. I mean, then that's the opportunity to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe that's not that funny anymore. That maybe, that was funny a couple of years ago, but I don't think that's funny anymore. Let's evolve. Let's expand our humor into something new, and that drives the engine. That drives the engine. Like humor can be part of the engine of evolution, right? And whatever we're choosing to laugh at is how we're choosing to express ourselves. Again, individually and collectively at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, absolutely. And I think especially as things get crazier, right? Terrence McKenna said things are just gonna get weirder and weirder. I've seen
Yeah.
that, we're seeing that, it's just gonna get crazier and crazier. But my God, it's the funniest it's ever been.
Yeah.
Again, we're trying to focus on individual development and stuff, but like anytime any of the stuff with like politics, in the realm of you know, any of that stuff, like the memes come hard and fast, and it's like
Yeah.
it's so funny, dude. Like it's just like they're like they're hilarious because again, they're true, right? Like it's just like it's so true. And and so like I think life is gonna get harder. I as I foresee is like in like as the world is shifting towards like like everyone's positioning themselves to want a conflict is what it seems. The governments and leaders of the world, but um the populations are aware and they're calling it out, and like because it's the only ways we can fight back is like making fun of them. Like why do you think in
Mhm.
authoritarian societies like comedians are not allowed to make fun of the leader? Because it
Yeah.
defeats their power, right? Because it does,
Yeah.
the cult of personality that they try to cultivate around themselves, you subvert that with humor, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen V for Vendetta, this beautiful film.
No.
It's like it's an authoritarian commentary. It takes place in England, so it's like the UK fell under an authoritarian regime, and
Mhm.
there's this talk show host who he goes all out and like on his like what he knows will be his last episode, right? And so he's making fun of like the leader, right? And then of course like the secret police, sorry, spoilers, y'all. The secret police come later in the night and they kill him, right? Obviously,
Mhm.
because but he knew that. Like the guy knew that going into it, where it's like he was like, this is gonna be my, my last hurrah. And
Mhm.
that's a fictionalized example, but like that's how it happened in the real world too. Like we're like comedians and anyone who's making fun of leaders that you can't talk about me, and they do, and then they're all of a
Yeah.
sudden in a prison camp in Siberia or something,
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
because you take away the power of power when you can laugh at it.
Yeah. And, I thought of, Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes, however long ago that was, 7, 8 years ago, where he just lights
Yeah,
up everybody. He's like, "You never
yeah,
invited me back." Like,
yeah,
that was so good. That was so funny, and,
yeah.
yeah, and
Because
just the
Hollywood's out of touch,
commentary.
man,
Yeah,
you know?
and
Like, do you remember
yeah,
the
the
Imagine
commentary.
song?
John Lennon?
Yeah, well, like, when all the celebrities, like, during COVID were like, "Imagine," like, they all, like, sang "Imagine" to, like, the
Oh, I
masses, and,
didn't
like,
see that.
they're, like, singing it from their because, like, COVID was a hard time, so, like, all this, like, objectively fucking hilarious, but they were, like, being
Yeah.
serious about it. So they're, like, really trying to be like, "Hey, y'all, like, come on, like, we're all in this together," from their multi-million dollar mansions, and, like, you do know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
there's millions of people unemployed and, like, going through hard times, and you're like, imagine all the people like singing a fucking song ain't gonna help, y'all. Like
Oh,
donate
that's
money or
funny.
something, like from your
Yeah,
millionaire, from your $1 million mansions, and
yeah.
but it's just like, yeah, brother, like, and yeah, Ricky Gervais calling out Hollywood because it's like, they're so self-important and giving themselves the awards and it's like, and I love the arts, like don't get it twisted, like I really do. I think they're so important. But yeah, like he was like bringing a touch of reality to people that were, in my mind, up in the clouds.
Yeah. Yeah, commenting on comedians getting canceled for stuff they said 10 years ago, and it's like, well, you gotta remember that was a different time, right? Like, and then he
Right.
gave this example of, yeah, anyway, some good examples. But that's the thing, right? Is we gotta, yeah. I mean, it's like the basis for most humor is like poking fun at someone who's taking themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
That's like the basis of a lot of humor, and like we got to be able to look at our society when it's going a little too far, trying to cancel everybody, and especially when you're going back in the annals of history to find the content that was cancelable. Um, that's you know it's reaching a little
Yeah.
bit, and like
Yeah.
what is this monster that's being fed by trying to cancel everyone? Like, maybe that shit needs to be poked fun at a little bit. Maybe that needs to be we need to be laughing at that,
Yeah. I'm right,
because
you're wrong.
yeah, yeah, because again, maintaining the awareness that right and wrong are not defined things. Like, just the way that we have changed over our history. Like, it wasn't that long ago a couple hundred years ago, physical violence, like, against well, I mean, obviously in the world today we've got war and we've got fight sports and stuff, but I mean, people turning a blind eye to a man being physically violent with his wife and children. Like, it wasn't that long ago that that was totally acceptable. And
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
that people were like enjoying it, but that was, on a societal level, that did not bring any repercussions, even where even different parts of the world, right? Like where you're at now. When I was there a year ago, there was a case of the local gym owner physically assaulting a woman in front of a bunch of witnesses, a traveler, like a foreigner, and the police came and they didn't really care at all. And it was like, yeah, if that was in North America, that would have been handled very differently. But just the context is very different. They didn't care. Um, and it's the same thing with humor. It's time and time. You can crack the same joke. You can't crack the same jokes that you can in North America. That you can't take those over to, like, somewhere like Iran. Um, it's just like you're saying. Dictatorships. And who knows? Maybe it is getting there, and the place is closer to home, where hearing um, Homeland Security wanting to look at 5 years of past social media content for people trying to come to a new country. Um, that's all taking ourselves very seriously and taking what's said very seriously. Which, again, good and bad. Just got to be able to hold both ends of that polarity and to have a look,
Yeah.
really, the clearest look we can at it.
Yeah, man. And like, for that example too, right? It's like if you can't laugh at yourself or allow people to laugh,
Yeah.
it's like I can't trust you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
trust politicians in general, right? But it's like, I really don't trust you if, like, you can't if they don't have a sense of humor. You know, that's why I think that, like, the politicians that are snakes that, like, do have a sense of humor, like, they get away with a lot, you know, because,
Yeah.
you know, like, even, like, you know, all the like, the most recent American president like, everyone's all like, honestly, all the most recent American presidents were funny in their own way. Bill Clinton was funny in his own way, you know, with, like,
Mm.
you know, the scandal, and, like, George W. Bush was, like, this, like, you know, this useful idiot, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, "Come on, man," you know, like, just and,
Yeah.
Obama was, like, you know, actually kind of funny, you know, and just, like, quick-witted, I would say, and then, you know, and Trump is funny in his own ways too, like, I do not like the guy, but it's like he's you know, sometimes he's fucking funny. Biden was funny too because he's, like, half dead for his whole term, you know what I mean? He's like, "Come on, man," you know, like, it's just like, I don't like, you know, again, you know, I think in terms of the American political system, it's like it's a rigged game, but it's like objectively, like some of the shit that those guys do is like is kind of funny, you know, and it
Yeah.
doesn't mean it doesn't impact my life for negative, you know, like none of them have given us healthcare, or I mean, I you know, or like I mean, some of them I've tried poorly, I would say, but Obama with Obamacare, but you know, but it's like 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 there's just there's no denying the fact that the things that they do sometimes are funny, or the things that even the awful things, right, in our society have some humor in them. And I think it's yeah, man, it's just necessary to get through it, right? So cuz it's like
Yeah.
cuz then it's frustrating cuz they're like at the same time I'm angry and I'm sad, right? For like a lot of this stuff when it
Mhm.
comes to like the global state of the world. And so how to get through that, right? It's just like if someone points out something that's humorous about the reality of the situation, it's funny because it's true. It's like, of course, that's a beautiful thing because it's like to take it so serious, right? To take the human experience like so seriously, and it's like yeah, like I know when to turn the adult on. You know what I mean? If I'm in a serious
Mhm.
situation, right? Or like, yeah, like if you're in the, you know, when you're in your medical services and you come across a serious situation, it's like, all right, like I'm at work, I gotta go to work. But then like you're back in the truck and it's like, all right, like situations resolved, you know, for better for worse. It's like, but then like, you know, you can have a moment of respite to cope with like the crazy thing that you just dealt with, right?
Yeah.
And I just think that's so needed. And anyone that doesn't recognize that, I don't trust. You know, like I don't trust you if you can't poke fun at life and you know, uh see the silver lining in things and even awful situations or hard situations or tragic situations. And you know, in America too, brother, like it's like I don't know how when this started, you know, but like the 9/11 jokes are off the rails. You know, like people got way more willy-nilly with the 9/11 jokes um
Mm.
in recent memory. You know what I mean? And like and on all on you know all over the place, right? You know, it's just like and is that like a societal thing to like cope, right? Like with this massive societal transformation within America where it's like the Patriot Act, rights were subverted, a government overreach, you know, through technology. And you know, we went through this, you know, decades long war. We had veterans come home with PTSD and this clear, distinct pre and post American civilization with this
Mm.
marker. And like we've been in eternal war since then. And it's like, is this just like the American population's way of coping with, you know, this situation that they lived through? And I don't know. I don't know. You know, I don't know if that's for true or not, but it's like I've noticed that that is no longer off limits. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
is fully on the table for many folks, it seems like.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like you said, finding that place where like where we choose that it's okay, and like you said, also recognizing that you don't really trust somebody who doesn't see the humor in it because they're not really seeing the whole picture if they're only taking it seriously and holding that one end of the polarity. So, like, that makes sense to me. Like, you gotta be able to see the humor to be, like, fully present and to be trustworthy. You know, you gotta, because you're not seeing it all if you're not. And, it's,
Yeah.
you're using the 9/11 example, and it was kinda like Jewish comedians, making Holocaust jokes, and what did that take? Took maybe 40, 50 years. And I don't know exactly, maybe there were sooner ones, but, like, what I
Yeah.
remember hearing, maybe it was 40, 50 years later that, like, people were like, "Okay, maybe we can crack just a tiny little joke about this."
Yeah,
And
because that's
yeah,
traumatized generations, like, trying to resolve
yeah.
what your ancestors went through, or, probably not even and not distant ancestors, maybe grandmothers or
No, like,
aunts and uncles,
or
or, maybe
even
your
parents.
parents.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and so it's like
yeah,
that
in
trauma
that
was passed
case.
down to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're, in the 1980s, 1990s, cracking jokes about that, and yeah, it's funny because, like, one of either of those examples, it's like the time doesn't make the experience any less. I mean, there's, like, the saying, like, "Time heals all wounds," but really, like, the span of time between when an event occurred and when it's being talked about is, it doesn't lessen the impact of that experience. It's like those 2 traumatic examples are what they are. They're no less traumatic just because time has passed. I mean, they kinda, with the way we look at things from the perspective of the human ego, it certainly seems like that because they become less relevant in our pattern recognition system. But ultimately, like, they're no less serious, they're no less horrific, and time, if we're thinking of time as being an illusion, like, what is the passage of half a century really do? It doesn't actually do anything, but we're already able to find humor in something so horrific. Like, what does that say? I mean, I think that's an interesting thing to think about and just, kinda meditate on as humans. To be like, maybe there's obviously that mental faculty is there, that it exists, that even when someone is being victimized, quote unquote, like, going through that experience, there's a part of them that's picking up on the shit there that doesn't make sense and is funny. Whether they're
Yeah.
gonna process that at a time and share it, probably not, but, like, it's there, it's being recognized, which means that we're recognizing humor even when we're going through the most horrific experiences of our lives, and that's interesting. And, from my experience, that window in my old job, specifically, working in the fire department, uh that window was, like, could be really small, and that was, like, that would make it even funnier, leaving some really depressing, horrible scene and somebody cracking a joke, like, the minute we're back in the truck. It was like, it just kinda collapsed it more and more, and it became this, it evolved into this thing where, for me personally, in my experience, was just, it just got funnier and funnier because I knew, it became less shocking. It became more, palatable to be able to, um, just quickly process things and realize that, I don't have to hold on to this thing because it's like that feeling like, oh, has it been long enough since that thing happened that we can crack a joke? And, whether it's 9/11 or, some nasty call that some first responders go on, it's like realizing that the belief that that gap has to be, so big, is just another attachment and just, probably coming from some societal expectations. And, this, we're kind of getting into what, you know, the foundations of of what humor is, I guess, is, like, when is it okay to break that script? Like, we're all following along the build up, and, like, when is it appropriate for the punchline to come in? When are we, creating that, because, like, basis of a joke, you kind of you kind of bring your audience along on a path, and then you change directions really quick, and it's like, oh, that was not expected, and then that sort of buildup of tension, and that sort of buildup of tension is kind of like an anxiety that then gets relieved with, like, the punchline, or whatever it is, and it's like this release of energy. It's like that's what is laughter often is like we laugh to deal with some anxiety sometimes, right? And especially in different cultures where um like I've been traveling around Asia, certain places around here, laughter is can be a little bit different than it is in North America. It can be used to express discomfort or anxiety. And someone from North America or Western Europe might be like, "What are you laughing at this? This tense situation?" And it's not. It's just a different perspective. But yeah, recognizing that that's what it is. It's like a release. It is very much a release of tension. So why wouldn't we be laughing? Why do we have to judge it so much? Why wouldn't we be laughing at certain things? Whenever it feels right, maybe a little sooner than societal conventions have, um, stated that is inappropriate. But yeah, because ultimately that's what it is. It's like a buildup and a release of buildup of energy, and it's like a way of releasing that energy. That's why we're laughing at funerals, we're laughing at traumatic events. It's dark humor. You don't even have to call it dark humor. It's just humor.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's like when I look at like some of the most traumatic experiences of like me growing up, but like through the lens of humor, it's like if I can remove myself from like, the outside perspective of like watching someone else go through that, but it's like, it was me experiencing it, but it's like, yeah, man, like that was funny, like it
Yeah,
was, it wasn't necessarily like enjoyable for me to go through it, but how I can kind of be at peace and process it now, it's just like, yeah, it was funny. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, it's like you remove when you can remove the personal attachment to things, and this is most of it. Because like, what is cancel culture? People, it's fear-based, obviously. People are afraid that it's going to hurt them. It's gonna hurt a vulnerable population, and of course, these perspectives are important to consider and think about. Um but yeah, when we can turn it around on ourselves, yeah, like great example. If I look at my childhood and I know because of the work that I've done on myself that I've released those attachments to the small I self, like the individual expression, and recognize myself as a part of the greater, like of the all, recognize myself as part of the whole collective, and understand that what I truly am was not actually hurt once I released those attachments. Yeah, I can look at my childhood and be like, that's pretty funny. It's pretty ironic that I was being treated that way by that parent. That's like supreme, like it's very, very ironic because that's how they were treated. And it's like, well, that's we're just looking at intergenerational trauma. If you kind of remove all of the like heaviness, it's like there's something funny there. It's like, oh, so you're treating someone the way that you were treated, and you didn't like it, but you're repeating it. Like that's ironic. You don't fucking see that. Like that's an obvious like disconnect, and it's funny, and like the humor brings that disconnect back together. And so, like, it's all funny. You can take fucking anything and be like, and looked at from a karmic perspective where everything is connected. No one has ever been a victim of anything in the history of the world. If we take that energetic karmic perspective, again, cause and effect, whether it spans across lifetimes or just one, understanding that everything that happens to us in our day is a creation of ourselves, of our own being and expression, then like taking anything that happens to us seriously is kind of funny because you're observing yourself or someone else miss the point entirely. It's like you're getting upset, but like you did this. So like that is in itself like fundamentally funny, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, man. I
Some people won't like that one.
No, I know. I know. But it's like, at the same time, I don't know, it's just like when I meet those people that are like taking life so, so serious, and I'm like, you're missing out on like one of the most enjoyable aspects of it. And it's also like, yeah, like when it comes to like my dad or, and like and his dad, and yeah, he didn't like how his dad treated him, and it was like, but he's like, repeating the patterns and like, doing it with
Yeah.
us, and it's just yeah, it's just like the irony in that, man, you know, and,
Yeah, exactly.
it's hilarious, you know, and, it's and, like, for me to, like, see that and, like, see my lineage and recognize it, it's yeah, like, it makes it easier for me to, like, understand and process, you know, and, like, understand, like, where I came from and why I am the way I am. It helps me humor helps us understand ourselves, dude. What is any good
Yeah,
art,
man.
right? It helps us understand and empathize and relate to the human condition, right? And so it's like
Yeah.
when humor's done well, it's just like we just understand ourselves a little bit more, you know, because again, when it comes to truth, and like I really love this point where it's like it's funny because it's true. And it's like when truth is so hard to come by, and when there's much smoke and mirrors in our society, in our world, and then someone hits you with a fucking joke that is just like undeniable, right? You're like, yeah, like, you know, that's they don't give a fuck about us or, you know, whatever. Like, it's just like, yep,
Mhm.
you know, that's real. And so you just get hit with a dose of truth when when we're just inundated with bullshit, you know, and it's just like, man, what a release that is to just be
Yeah.
heard, understood, seen, you know, and all the above, you know, it's a beautiful thing, bro.
Yeah, and it's like it breaks the tension as we are saying. It because it breaks the pattern. You know, when somebody throws out some words that break the mental, thought train that we're on, and it's like, okay, because like again, a joke. Say like a standard joke, somebody's telling a story and the audience is listening and they're hearing that story and they're based on their ego perception of recognizing patterns in their memories, they think they know where the story is going. And then when that punchline comes in and it breaks that pattern that has been being constructed, that's like essentially the humor. And when we've got this energy that is pulling us in the direction of like taking everything so fucking seriously and being afraid all the time, when something breaks that pattern, it breaks the expectation, 'cause you're like, okay, you kind of think you know where the story's going, you have that expectation, and then it gets flipped upside down. That When it breaks that pattern, it pulls you out of your mind. It brings you back together because it pulls you out of your mind and drops you into your heart for a second because it snaps us out of that it snaps us out of that pattern, right? It gets us out of the mind. And when we're just have all we have to do is just like zoom out a tiny, tiny bit. And then it's so much easier to drop into the heart and drop into presence and remember, like, oh shit, like, yeah, it's actually fine. Like everything's fine. Like this is crazy. Sure. If we look at it from this perspective, from this, again, this finite zoomed in perspective, the perspective of the ego, the perspective of I've got one life here and this one body to take care of. And like, oh, they're taking away some of my freedoms. That's pretty scary. Yeah. But if you zoom out and you recognize you're a soul having a human experience, like you're a spiritual being having a human experience, then like, and this is just such a tiny little piece of it, you remember like this isn't that serious. And like in that moment, you're dropping back into your heart and you're bringing that awareness of like this isn't that bad. So the fact that I was taking it so seriously is kind of funny because like I'm gonna die. Like we're all gonna live, 80, 100 years if we're lucky, and like and leave behind these bodies and be like, oh, that shit wasn't too serious. It wasn't that serious after all. But like, remember when I was that human and I was taking things so seriously? Like that's pretty funny. And that's the other thing, right? Is like going down this path of expanding awareness. This whatever we want to call it, this pathless spiritual path. It's like you start to recognize the humor that's in fucking everything. Like the humor that is woven into creation. Like God has a sense of humor. Like and
A
the people
hundred
who are
percent.
and bringing that in, like for when you're still going through the process of like finding your intuition and discernment and marrying those two to move through this life as gracefully, as skillfully as possible, recognizing that the people who are taking themselves too seriously, generally want to give them, like a wide berth. The people who are the people, it's like, like the spiritual community, like the performative spiritual community, the competitive spirituality, like the spirituality for an aesthetic is just another ego trap. Like again, some of these places
Yeah.
that visited in like Central America and stuff like that. When somebody's taking themselves so seriously and think they got the answers and all that stuff, like stay away, run in the other direction, don't walk. But when somebody's like able to laugh at themselves and not take themselves seriously, like that to me is someone who is connected with God. That is someone who is like understanding what it's all about because ultimately, like, how can we take ourselves seriously when we do zoom out? When we just zoom out a tiny bit and we look and we see, like, this isn't that big of a deal. When you zoom out, like you're saying, you zoom out, you look at, or like both of us are saying, we zoom out, we look at our family lineages, and like, oh yeah, okay, so my grandparents did that, and then it led to my parents being like that, it led to me. Like, okay, it's like it's super ironic. And like, and look at us. Look at these fucking shaved monkeys. These humans, just a bunch of shaved apes running around, taking themselves so seriously when it's like this is such obvious, like these such obvious patterns are repeating themselves and we can't even recognize it. Like that is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
It's really funny. So then and
Yeah,
then
man.
that just pulls it all apart. All the trauma just falls apart. And not to say that we don't, if we're still in it, you treat yourself with love and respect and take it seriously and process it until you get to that place of recognizing this shit. This, no matter how heavy it was, it never mattered because this whole human experience was never that serious to begin with. Our stories, my identity, my like, all of the stories, all of the masks that I've worn that make up like who I think I am, my name, my body. It's like none of it's real. It's all illusion. So, taking any of it seriously is ultimately profoundly hilarious. And we just gotta remember that from time to time. Check in and like and humor can be what helps us break that pattern, drop out of our minds, taking ourselves so seriously, right into our heart space and
Yeah.
remember like
Out of the
shit, man, this
fear,
just
out of that fear paradigm too,
yeah, exactly,
like you were
exactly.
saying.
Which is all in our minds, it's an individual and a collective experience and creation is like it's all in our minds, like man, I used to take myself so much more seriously. I used to take my old job so seriously until I started to see through the fucking bullshit patterns that were existing within that culture and that corporate framework. It was like, man, okay, like this shit doesn't matter. This isn't the way I'm choosing to express myself anymore. And just within a couple of years difference, like I took something so seriously to like I went from thinking something was so important and so serious to like literally not caring about it at all and being like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna move on
Yeah,
to a new part of life now, like, who cares?" Find something more exciting to
yeah.
do, so, it's like it's like that with everything, whatever we're in the moment with, we can always zoom out, we can always zoom out.
Yeah, man. I think that's probably a good place to cap episode 27 of Oneself. Yeah, man. Any closing thoughts on humor, laughter, any of that stuff?
Just
Getting
that
through life?
there's always a silver lining. It's just we just gotta zoom out again, repeating that point.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Folks, if
man.
you like what you heard, please engage with us in all the ways that are free. Like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend, tell a friend if you got something out of it. We really, really appreciate it. And we'd love to hear from you if you feel so inclined and are nice, or maybe, rib it on us too, like find the humor in us, bro.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, point out our
if you got a good one,
yeah, shit.
send it our way. Hopefully there's
Yeah.
love underneath it, but it's not just me because I got feelings, but that's okay. Uh, um, but yeah, no, we really appreciate you tuning in, and we'll catch you next time, y'all.